You're rocking with some of the realest coaches in the game. Coach RB and Coach CB. Area code 459.
Guys, welcome back to Area Code 459. I'm here with my co-host. She needs no introduction. It's Coach CB, Caitlin Benedict. What's up, Caitlin?
What's up, Coach? Welcome y'all to Area Code 459. I hope you're ready to bring that energy because we got some fire message for you today.
Absolutely, absolutely. But before we step into our message, we always want to thank the people that support us. We want to give a big shout out to my man Rich Hernandez in Panama City, Florida. He is responsible for the Area Code 459 logo behind me. He is the owner of In-House Inc.
Also want to give a shout out to our girl, Mrs. Jennifer Murray. She's responsible for J-May Crafts, and she does outstanding work. She's going to be working on our apparel and our household crafts items for Area Code 459.
No doubt, no doubt. I want to give also another personal shout out to my man George Frost in Orlando, Florida. He's going to be setting up that East Bay store where you can get your official Area Code 459 logo on any popular sportswear of your choosing.
And last but not least, we would like to thank God, family, friends, listeners, and believers of our Area Code 459 culture.
Absolutely. So today our episode is about what's the worst piece of advice anyone has ever given you, man. When I thought about this, I was like, man, this just is a perfect topic, especially about what's going on in our lives, you know, working with sports and different things. You know, I just think to myself, man, we have been given some bad advice at some times. So we're going to connect to that. But before we start, let's jump into our Q&A, all right? Caitlin, you're going to take us through definition for worst, the word worst. And when I looked up the word worst, the first thing I thought to myself was it's a superlative of bad. So what is your definition of worst and what does it mean to you?
Well, when I looked it up, there are many definitions, but the one that stuck out to me was when worst is used as a verb. And when it's used as a verb, it means get the better of or defeat. You know, and there are many definitions, like I said, but this one speaks definitely to me the most because as a competitor, you know, when someone tells me get the better of defeat, that means loss. And as a competitor, loss is one of the worst things you can ever have. You know, it leads to sleepless nights. It's hard to leave the gym when you do bad in a drill, you don't complete your time, you don't complete number of made shots you need, even for a game or the field or wherever you're at, you know. And so this definition is definitely what it means to me. And it's something like I worked hard to never have to experience, you know, because I don't like to allow the worst things to get the better of me and even defeat me. And life always has a way of bringing the worst to your life. You know, it always has the worst way of bringing worst moments, worst situations, and you can always mentally allow that to get into your head and mess with you. And so over time, I had to learn how to develop a new definition for the word worst. Because I had a hard time with it mentally. I always allowed losses to get to me, and it kind of kept me from my potential. So this new definition that I created had to give me a new outlook on life, and it really had changed the way the worst things affected me. And so my definition for worst now is that every loss in life isn't a loss. It's actually a lesson. And so we have to allow the worst moments to inform us. We have to allow the worst moments to be our teachers, the worst moments of life to tell you something about yourself. We're not supposed to run from it and we're not supposed to hide from it, but instead lean into it. So the word worst is actually a motivating word to me now. And it's not a loss, but it's actually a lesson.
Nice, nice. I really love that you talked about it's a loss and actually a lesson. I'm going to actually come back to that. So I hope that, you know, me writing it down mentally in my thoughts, and maybe I'll just write it down real quick. But I want to definitely come back to that later when we get to our call to action, because I'm going to refer back to that again. So just know that.
And our next word is going to be advice. And when I looked up advice is guidance or recommendations offered with regard to prudent future action. So, like, what does advice mean to you?
Right, right. So when I think about advice, I actually think about three words, and you mentioned one in your definition. It was guidance. When I think about guidance, I think about a person who cares and is supposed to guide you for your future. So when somebody's giving you advice, like they've got to have the end game in mind when they're talking to you. You see what I'm saying? So that's like real big to me. Like it's supposed to be a person that guides you. The next one is advise. Advise is a verb. It actually pertains to counsel. Counseling is is there to point you on the right path. My big thing about like advising, like it's about the vehicle, right? Like how can somebody tell you to drive the vehicle down the street if they don't know what point of reference you're coming from, right? So if you're going to advise me for my future, shouldn't you know something about my past? You see what I'm saying? Like maybe I am, very motivated to get to a certain point in my life because of something that's happened in my past. So if you're going to stand there and actually use your platform, like that guidance platform or that counseling platform, and you're going to advise me, I think you should look back into the past. The next one is help. Help is offering resources and assistance needed to push a person in the right direction. I think a lot of people miss this part of advice and understand that, you're supposed to give advice, but you're supposed to also help. So if I give you some advice, I'm supposed to also network and give you the resources you need to be successful. These can be performed by an array of different people. You have teachers, you have counselors like you and I, coaches, you have ministers, you have parents, you have friends, you have spouses. I mean, the list is just simply endless. You know what I'm saying? And it's safe to say that the advice you get from these individuals usually play a significant influential role in our lives as a whole. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't kind of get is like, if you're giving us advice, if you're giving us this counsel, if you're advising us, if you're giving us this help, you are being influential to the person and the makeup that we're forming in our lives. That's where, you open your ears, your mind, and your heart, and you're able to discern that valuable information and pertain what is valuable and what is not. And I like how you said worse, like your discernment says that, it's not a loss, but it's a lesson. You see what I'm saying? So, I think that advice and work can go hand in hand. So we're gonna like move on from our Q&A, and we're gonna actually just talk about our stories. It'd be great to hear a couple stories from each of us. So I'm gonna let you start, Caitlin, and let's just remind our listeners what we're talking about. What was the worst piece of advice someone's ever given you?
I think number one, it was when I started playing basketball, and this kind of even pertained to college, and I'll explain that later. But when I started playing basketball, I had a different coach every year. And so the second year that I was playing, our athletic director at high school actually was my assistant basketball coach, and he had other responsibilities, and he was the head softball coach as well on the other side. But when I told him that I wanted to play college basketball, he looked at me and he said, "That will never happen." He said, "You will never do that. I don't know why you want to do that." And so as the season went on, that energy kind of was just draining. And he kept trying to take me away from basketball and put me into softball, and he just wasn't listening to me, and that wasn't my heart. Like, I never wanted to play softball. It was just something he wanted to do. He wanted me to do because he loved it. He didn't love basketball. And so as my basketball coach, he just kept trying to steer me away from my passion and my goal. And when he told me that, it was the worst piece of advice ever. But again, it made me learn that not everybody's going to be for me. And I had to turn around and continue to fight for what I believed in, because he didn't believe I was going to play college basketball. And then even when I got offered a spot on the team that I played in, he told me I wasn't going to be successful at it. And he never believed that I actually played and actually did my thing at my school. And so that was probably the first worst piece of advice that I've ever received. And today it still motivates me even now.
Absolutely. I would say that my first piece of advice was somewhere similar. It was me playing sports in high school, and it was my wide receiver coach. And he basically said it like this. He was like, "Man, just go to school. Don't play sports." First of all, I'm gonna call it what it is. You're nicer than me. He a hater. To me, he was hating. You know what I mean? And he didn't know how to look through size and measure talent. Like it was always about the size. Like I'll just tell you right now, I'm gonna keep it real. I mean, you've seen me. You know the stature. 5'6", 126 pounds leaving high school, soaking wet. I played at 165 in college. But the idea though is that I was just too small. And I felt like he always picked the players that he wanted to play based on how tight his relationship was with them. And, I was like, yo, I think you really should look at the talent and see if I have the ability to go. The second thing is he didn't know what it was like growing up as a young Black kid in Gary, Indiana, and then, coming here in the South and never playing this sport ever in my life. And now I'm playing a sport that I was actually successful at. He didn't understand that. And that's another thing too, is like, how can you advise me? You know what I mean? And you don't know where the point started at with the vehicle, right? So, how can you just say, hey, why won't you just stick with education? If he knows anything about me, like my education was straight. I didn't need any advice on education. You see what I'm saying? I didn't need him to advise me to just go to school. And I was a successful player and a successful student in my high school. I actually graduated with a 4.17 in high school. I was on every president's list in college. I was in honors college, and I was actually recognized by ESPN as a academic All-American while playing. So my academics were on lock, and I got my master's at 23 as well. So I didn't need him to advise me to be a college student. That was already going to happen. What I needed him to do was give me some advice on how to play the game. Now, if his thing was, you can't play at the next level because you're not good enough. Okay, I got it. Thank you for letting me know. Now, excuse me. All I can say is that you were wrong. I did my thing on Saturday afternoons, and now your advice was the worst piece of advice I've ever gotten, because I looked at sports as a way to teach young men how to be productive citizens, how to touch their hearts, how to integrate themselves with other cultures, how to work as a team and bond with other people that don't necessarily come from the same walks of life as them, and also, may not think the same, and then also may actually look physically different, right? In football, you have the little skinny, fast guys, right? And you have the big, slow, fat guys, right? Excuse my language if, fat offends you, but that's what the Hogs know what they're called, the boys in the trenches. Some of us are Black, some of us are white. My thing about it is that going to college and having that experience to play ball was like an ultimate step in my life, because I was able to make some friendships and some bonds, and also connect and continue to network and connect in the adult world versus the kid world. So thank you for trying to tell me I wasn't good enough to play college ball. Like you said, it's not a what am I trying to say? It's not a loss, it's a lesson. Thank you for your lesson. I needed it because now I know you showed yourself you're a hater, and I was able to take your advice and turn it into something positive. And I got two college degrees, and I got to play college ball, and I got to be a head coach early in my life, all because I got to play college football. So thank you for everything you've done for me.
Yeah, and I also have a second one, but it's kind of similar but different at the same time. It's now that I'm done playing basketball, like I have that passion and that desire to be a coach. And kind of being around you early in my career kind of sparked that desire for me. And you coach men's basketball, and that's kind of how I learned how to play the game, And so when I finished my college career, I was like, I want to continue training and I want to continue coaching boys. And not many girls say that, coming out of college, normally they're like, okay, now I have women's experience. I've played college basketball on the women's side. Let me go get a job on the women's side and just continue that. Well, I'm different and I like a challenge. And so when I told people that when I was looking for a GA spot, they're like, oh, well, it's going to be hard for you to do that because of the responsibilities that we require our GAs to do. So you should just go be a GA on the women's side or go coach and get some experience in high school on the women's side, and then try and break into the men's side later. And people don't know my heart, you know, they don't know my passion, they don't know my desire, and they don't know how I grew up. And I grew up in a family of all boys. I later in life got a sister, but I have 3 brothers, and they all played sports. So my friend group is 95% boys. And so it's not a challenge for me to translate myself on the men's side. Like, I can be professional and do that. But you're sitting here to tell me to settle and to do what's easy, you know? And I'm never one of those people that does what's easy. I like the challenge. I think everything worth having in life is going to be hard to get. And so that's kind of the person that I am and the mindset that I have. So when I sit there and hear a coach that's been through the fire, been where I've been, and knows how hard the grind is to tell me to take the easy road out, I just look at them and be like, I don't even know what you're talking about, coach. Like, that's the worst piece of advice you could give me as a young woman, a young person trying to break into a coaching environment that is going to be tough already, you know, and I know that you're not going to be a supporter. You know, I can't lean on you. So that's another experience that I had that has been the worst piece of advice coming out of college, to do something that I don't want to do just because it's easy, you know? So yeah, that's the worst piece of advice that I've had now being older.
And I really like that, because, and it goes back to where, you know, when I gave you in my definition advice, like, you know, when you advise someone, you're preparing the vehicle, right? But you can't drive your car to the end of the road, and if you don't know the starting point, like, I can't drive from here to Florida. You know, I live in Texas. I can't drive from here to Florida and without GPS. You know what I mean? Like, my starting point hits here, my tower pings, it gets me to my next location. And you know, the fact that people don't know that you grew up with boys, right? The fact that people don't know that you you know, that you've been around men's sports all your life. Like, why wouldn't you go and challenge yourself and try to be the best that you can be? You know, Becky Hammond's out there doing her thing, you know what I mean? And I definitely know that you can do it too. So, you know, just keep chugging along. You're right. Bad advice. I agree with you. Terrible. Whoever said that, I'm sorry if you're listening, but you know what? That was terrible advice, especially for Caitlin Benedict. Mine was, I actually recently put out a statement. So mine's more on like an adult side, like, you know, of what's going on in America right now. I actually put out a social media statement. You know, it was one of those things where, you know, people were like, man, you know, that was, you know, pretty tough that you said that or whatever, da-da-da. And I'm like, look, you know, I just, you know, I mean no disrespect when I say it. And I actually wanted to read it, but I don't think I have it, so that's okay. I'll just give you the gist of it. The idea was my father asked me to be careful what I say on social media, and it was like it was almost like a LeBron James shut up and dribble statement to me, and I was like, you know, I don't mind you giving me some advice, but I think at some point, you know, if you stand up and you believe in something, right? We've been in sports all our lives, right? We said that stand for something or fall for anything, right? And sooner or later you have to stand up. And I didn't like the piece of advice that I was given, and I shouted, you know, I shouted the situation. I didn't shout him out as a person, because I love my dad. My dad's a single man, retired military, big baller, you know, basically got me through and has made me the man that I am today. So I love that man. But at the same time, at this point in time in this issue, I'm not being quiet. And the statement was about what's going on with Black men, and basically what I want to iterate is that Black men have been pushed further and further down the ladder in this country, and someone has to continue to ring out and give that voice to that community. This is what this show is about, right? Aren't we supposed to love our neighbor? How can you look at one person and then look at and then say they're not special? That's another thing that's been like really touching my heart, and I hope anybody that's listening that understands you are special. I don't know about what your Bible reads, but I can just tell you what my Bible reads. When when the sheep herder lost one sheep, what did he do? He left all the collector sheep alone by themselves, and he went and found the one special sheep. You see what I'm saying? Another one is, what about the prodigal son? The wasteful son goes off, spends all his money, parties, does his thing. He comes home, and what does pops do? Put his arms around him and say, my son is home. Let's party. Let's have a party. The older son gets mad because he wasn't wasteful, right? It wasn't him that was wasting all of his inheritance. And what did the father do? The father kind of checked him. He said, look, you're my oldest. Everything that I have, you have, right? But your son was lost, and our son, your brother, was lost, but now he's found. You know, so that just tells me right then and there that you are special, just the one person. And that's where, you know, I kind of step inside and say, you know, my beliefs, and, you know, I'm not trampling on anybody's beliefs. I am a Christian. My Christian belief says, you know what? Hey, one person is special over the collective view. So if somebody is hurting, we all are hurting. You see what I'm saying? And that's where, you know, I think that was a definite bad piece of advice. And, you know, I hear it in old hymns, and old people used to tell me all the time, you know, you might only suffer for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And it's like, yeah, but we're done with that. We're not waiting that long for the morning to come. We're ready for it to come now. So, you know, no disrespect, or if it does disrespect, I apologize if he feels it that way. But he knows I love him, and it comes from a space of love. But the idea is that, you know, we just have been in this land for far too long, walking around, wandering in this foreign land, and we need to wake up, and we need to love each other. We need to push forward. So this is bad advice, because if you allow injustice anywhere in this country, you are condoning a threat to justice everywhere in this country. So my big thing was bad advice, not good for me. Sorry, I will not be silent. I will continue to step up, because in my Bible it reads, one person is special than the collective many.
Yeah, that's good. I really like that. Speaks to me too. So as we finish up and we wrap up, and we always want to, like coaches, get in our huddle, you know, and because groups at the end of each practice reflect on our efforts and what we can do to get better, and just find something that's relatable to life and situations that we all face every day. So this section we're going to call our 459 call to action. We do this at the end of every episode. So Coach B, what is your call to action for today?
Man, my call to action is a really good one, man. I've thought about it. I really want, this is really on my heart. You know, I'm a teacher, so you know I'm going to give you some homework. I want you to go out there and actually do it. Caitlin and I are actually going to get on another episode. We're going to actually talk about some call to actions, you know, just to continue to keep the vibe and let you guys know that we're doing our homework. But my call to action today is go to a person that gave you bad advice and ask about their perspective or thoughts at the time. Like, yo, like, I want to know what you were thinking. I want to know why you would say that to me. And then I want you to ask them, okay, what did they think that your future was, right? What did you think that their future was? So the first one is, what were they thinking? The second is, what did they see in your future? And then lastly, I want you to respectfully thank them for motivating you to find yourself and to flourish with the thought of people rooting against you. Because if they can't come to you and say, you know what, this is what I was thinking, I was wrong. If they still feel they were right, say, guess what, you were absolutely right, and you motivated me to do better. Thank you so much. Your bad advice was not a loss, it was a lesson.
And my call to action, I want you to look back at your life, and I want you to find 2 moments that were your worst moments, that you feel like are your worst moments. Then I want you to find how you can turn those worst moments, those losses, and find a lesson. So once you find your 2 lessons, I want you to take these lessons over the next week and see how they can change your perspective to moving forward.
I like those. Well, you know, before we get out of here, Caitlin, we always got to say our motto. So go ahead, take it away. You start.
Man, my motto is 1% better every day. So continue to grind, continue to get 1% better every day. 1%
better every day. I love it. And all I'm going to say, you know, before I get out of here is we need to become bold in ourselves and in our love as a society. Remember, Coach B loves you. Let love be the frequency. Peace.